Hey there, thanks for tuning in to DuckBricks. I'm Chris, and welcome to a brand new Ninjago Fan and Review, the show where I review the fan-created custom LEGO Ninjago MOCs, this time from Brick Legends. And today's topic of review is from Tournament of Elements, Jay's Lightning Mech versus Clouse's Magic Rock Monster. Now, Brick Legends is responsible for some of my favorite LEGO Ninjago MOCs. From Cloud Kingdom to the City of Merlopia to the Preeminent itself, they have done a ton of incredible LEGO Ninjago builds that are featuring topics in the show that have never really been made into sets and probably never will. But this one is a little different because one of the topics of this build has been made into a set not just once, but twice, albeit the second time was a Legacy 4 Plus mech, so it doesn't really count. That is, of course, Jay's Electro Mech from Tournament of Elements. This is a revamped version of the model from all the way back in 2015, fully upgraded to be screen accurate, and this time it also has, for the first time in LEGO brick form, Clouse's Magic Rock Monster mech style build as well, making it a mech battle pack. And so, without further ado, let's jump right in to the review. Alright, so here is the custom Jay's Electro Mech versus Clouse's Rock Monster Mech for the first time in physical LEGO form. Now this, of course, is a MOC by Brick Legends, who is one of the most talented LEGO Ninjago MOCists out there, and this is really no exception. In fact, this was probably one of my most anticipated builds I wanted to put together from their entire lineup, mostly because it finally gives us a mech battle between Jay's mech and the Clouse mech, something that we did see in the TV show itself, but unfortunately nothing that we ever saw made into an official LEGO set. In fact, Jay's mech was remade as a Ninjago Legacy set, but unfortunately that was as a 4 Plus set, so we never really got to see the full potential of what a modern remake of Jay's mech might look like until now. And of course, like many of my other action figure style reviews, we're going to be focusing on a few main points for this review: posability, building techniques, and aesthetics, especially comparing it to how they look like in the show. I'm going to start off with Jay's mech, which is kind of the focus of the build itself, and set aside Clouse's mech for now, and just really focus in on what makes this mech special. Now, much like the original set, and to an extent the 4 Plus set as well, this does actually retain the play feature, which is that you can actually twist a knob at the back here, actually push this up and down, to allow you to raise and lower the spikes on the back of the mech. Now, of course, back in the original set, this was a little bit smaller, but it does have the very similar function, where you just have this slide up and down on a sliding bar. This is what it looks like with the blades down at the bottom, so you can kind of see what that looks like right there. And then you can actually go ahead, and if I manage to reconnect the leg here, let's just get that reconnected, slide that up, and from the front, it looks like this. So that to me is a really simple but really fun action figure. It allows a way to dynamically change the way that the mech is posed, and it really does lend itself to more interesting poses, especially when you want to have the mech, say, have the blades at a slight angle like this, which I personally think is the best look for the mech itself. It almost feels like wings or extra back extensions for the mech itself, which definitely add to the overall silhouette and uniqueness of the overall build. Now, in terms of posability and articulation, this is fully posable. Starting with the arms, you actually do have the elbow articulation here, but you also have the ability to rotate the elbow for the cannon here, which is definitely something that lends itself to a lot more dynamic poses, which I do really appreciate. Technically, if you want to, you can move the way the ratchet joints on the guns are mounted as well on this hand, although I definitely will probably just keep it like this, similar to how it was in the show itself. And here, you can not only move the elbow on this hand, but the entire hand is mounted on a mixel joint or mini ball joint as well, so you actually get a full nice range of articulation as well as being able to wiggle the fingers. So all in all, that is a really nice amount of articulation for the hands. You can really get this all the way up in interesting different poses. You can have it like ready for a fist fight going like this. You can have it go pop pop and be moving the fist forwards. Really whatever you want to do with the mech, you can actually achieve as they pose for where the arms are concerned, which is really nice. The legs, on the other hand, though, I will admit are a little bit finicky, and the reason for that is because the building techniques used for the legs are maybe not the most stable. I definitely feel that the piston pieces here, while very good for detail, unfortunately do tend to wobble back and forth. As you can see, they do very much tend to flop all over the place, and there isn't really a good way to secure these pistons to one particular point. It's a technique that LEGO used in the Exosuit from LEGO Ideas, which was a classic space-themed suit, and it was equally equally as flimsy there, so it definitely does come down to the way that your joints interface with the pieces, but that's just something I wanted to call out. The other thing is that the knee joint is articulated, which is nice, but it's also only attached by 2 studs, so if you do bend the leg, it does tend to pop off. So given that this is a mock, I definitely will give it a little bit of leeway there. It definitely would never fly in an official LEGO set just because of how flimsy the overall connection is, but it's a mock, so you definitely have to expect some sort of kind of fragility to the way that it works, especially if you want to play around with the poses of it. Although, given that it is a mock, it's honestly not even that bad, and you can still get it in all sorts of good poses, as long as you're patient with it, especially when it breaks. Now, the feet are mounted on ratchet joints as well, but thankfully you can actually rotate them back and forth, and there is a bit of friction there, so it allows you to actually be able to achieve a ton of different poses, and the legs themselves are mounted on these standard Bionicle style ball joints, so while technically the most you can splay them out is like this, because they don't really have the socket built in to rotate the leg this way. If you just bend it outwards, it will come out from the axle a little bit, but it does allow you to bend it all the way, so it's not that big of a deal. A normal LEGO set probably would have made this a much longer bar, which would have compromised on aesthetics, but allowed you to more safely do a pose like this. But for the purposes of a mock, this is not bad whatsoever. Honestly though, I do feel like the weakest part of the model does come down to the way the legs are built. It is just a little frustrating having the legs continuously fall apart when you're trying to play with it and pose it, but again, it's not that big of a deal, and as long as you are careful with the way you pose it, you can still get it in a lot of really unique poses, and you can even wiggle the toes as well, which is really, really nice and a very fun touch. So I'm just going to get this reconnected up. I do appreciate all the detail that they managed to factor in the lower legs, from the little Samurai X helmet or bucket helmet pieces being utilized on one of the legs there just to give it a little bit more technical depth with the greebling, to the way that you can really pose it up and have the knees actuate. This is very screen accurate while still being relatively stable to be played with. But now I think we can move on to the other build in this little custom set, and that is, of course, the Clouse mech, which is actually one of the ones I was really excited to have as a battle mech set, to really have them be fighting each other. So I'm going to set aside Jay's mech for now and just focus in on the Clouse mech here. Now this obviously is a magical creation. It's not really necessarily what I would even call a mech. It was something that Clouse created out of a magic spell in the show to battle Jay's mech, and as such, it feels a lot more organic and a lot more natural than the other mech. It has 4 arms, so it has 4 very rocky arm pieces. You can spin the ends of the arms here to really make them feel like spinning clubs or weapons, and you can even lift the head of it up so you can reveal Clouse in the cockpit. And once you remove Clouse, it is just a pretty standard cockpit, like so. You can just see the amount of detail there. He kind of just sits inside of there, but he doesn't really need any mechanical controls because it is a mech made out of magic and rock, so it totally makes sense to have it like that. Now, the articulation for this is a lot easier to play around with and a lot easier to articulate than the other mech, mostly because this is a very squat and simple mech. It definitely does feel like this could have been an actual LEGO set in the way that the feet are mounted on ratchet joints. There's no sort of knee articulation, but I don't really think it needed any, and of course the feet are mounted on ball joints. You can really have it be stomping along like so, and you also have a full range of articulation when it comes to the arms. These bits are mounted on mixel joints, so you can move those around. There is a bit of a risk that if you move it the wrong way, you will potentially cause this plate to split outwards, but as long as you're careful with it, it does tend to articulate nicely, and of course, you can get this in a variety of all sorts of different cool poses, like one that's ready to smash, one that's really trying to curl up in a defensive position, or maybe one where one arm is swinging up, the other arm swinging down, and you're going for kind of an upper and lower attack at once. This is such a fun little rock monster build to play with, and I really like the way that it all came together, and I really do feel like this is a very nice and formidable opponent to Jay's mech, which is kind of a battle of technology versus magic as seen here, which was a really cool idea and concept that we got for this build itself. Now, definitely visually speaking, the J-Mech is a little bit more eye-catching and a bit more interesting to me just to see them compared next to each other, but this one definitely is very, very screen accurate, which I really appreciate. You can see the gray spike going around the back there. There's all sorts of nice tan, dark tan, and gray detailing here, and altogether, these two mechs form a really nice battle scene. Really, the only major downside for the J Mech, other than the flimsiness of the legs, is that there isn't really an easy spot for Jay to actually sit in the cockpit. I actually had to go ahead and remove the sword additional armor piece for the minifigure just to film this video and allow him to sit in there, because he kind of just positions himself in there, no stud attachments, no nothing, and then the cockpit folds up around him. I guess it works okay, but he definitely does wobble a little bit when he is inside the mech itself, and I feel like maybe having some sort of a stud attachment or at least a bit of a seat for Jay would have made that much of a difference for the mech, but it's not that big of a deal. Otherwise, this makes for a really fun battle scene and definitely one that I feel could have been an actual LEGO set. These mechs are really awesome, and I'm really loving the mechs by Brick Legends. Of course, I've built the Samurai X mech, now I've done this, I'm doing Kai's Fire mech as well, so it definitely is a really cool lineup of mechs, and I certainly cannot wait to see what they cook up next. That's all for this review. I hope you enjoyed our special look at the custom Jay's Lightning Mech versus the Clouse's Magic Rock Monster. And of course, stay tuned for a lot more Brick Legends reviews coming very soon. Alright, with that, we have summed up our look at the incredible Jay's Electromech versus Clouse's Magic Rock Monster Mech Dual Pack. Let me know down in the comments below what you think of this custom LEGO Ninjago set, and if you're considering building it yourself, you can find the instructions linked in the description below. Once again, huge thank you to Brick Legends for sending me the instructions to review. I have a lot more on the way, so comment which other builds from Brick Legends do you want to see me review next, because I have a lot more to come. That's all for now. Thank you all so much for watching, and bye for now.